Before we begin this podcast, please be advised that the following episode contains language that some listeners may find offensive and inappropriate. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast producers. Listener discretion is advised.
In this week's episode of Voices of a Killer, we talk to Florida native and convicted killer Aaron Stimus. In July 2002, Aaron woke up in a hospital bed after a coma to discover two sobering facts. One, he had just survived a gunshot wound to the head, and two, he was being charged with first-degree murder. But as Aaron grappled to recover his patchy memory, he insisted that he knew one thing for certain. He was innocent. He had not intended to kill his wife, Julianne. Today, we hear Aaron's account of that fateful summer's evening. We'll hear about the hostile divorce proceedings, the life-ruining painkillers, and the police oversight that culminated in one chaotic and emotionally fraught July day. As we scrutinize the plausibility of his account, we'll ask the tough questions. Who really shot Aaron Stimus? Does his story hold up against the hard evidence in this case? And above all, is this a man living in denial, or a man who's been wrongfully accused of premeditated murder for the past 20 years? Join us as we get to the bottom of a complex crime on this episode of Voices of a Killer.
So, Aaron, where are you from? Florida?
Well, I was born in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Then I moved to Florida when I was 14 in 1976.
How old are you now?
I'm 62.
Okay, so you're not a spring chicken anymore. What was it like as a kid growing up in New York, and where at in New York?
Well, that was in Rochester. I lived there till I was 7, so I don't remember a lot.
Yeah.
Then I lived in Danbury, Connecticut from 7 years old to 14. And then, like I said, moved to Florida when I was 14 years old in 1976.
Are your parents, did they stay together all that time?
While growing up, they divorced after I was of age.
What did your parents do growing up? What kind of work did they do?
My dad, he was an executive in a high-tech company making impact printers.
Did he have a good income?
Yes, sir. The last job, he worked as an engineer for Bell Helicopter on the V-22 Osprey project.
Wow. So y'all live pretty comfortably?
Yes, sir.
Was there any kind of like abuse or substance abuse or anything in the family when you were a kid?
Well, my parents, they were more like weekend warriors. They used to like drinking, going to parties.
Yeah. How'd you do in school growing up?
Oh, I did good. Got A's in art and physical ed. I was Cape Coast champ in wrestling in 1980. I got good grades. Got, I think, a 9.10 on my SAT, so I qualified for any university in the state of Florida.
Did you aspire to be an engineer like your father?
Nah, because he told me he'd disown me if I became an engineer.
Oh, he would disown you?
Yeah, that's what he used to joke around, saying he'd disown me if I became an engineer.
Was he trying to say that it was difficult?
Well, he just said that he didn't think I'd be happy in it, I guess. So I became a carpenter.
Do you think your dad was unhappy?
Well, he seemed like he was a hard worker. So I wouldn't say he was unhappy. He got cancer. What was it, like 40 years old? He got diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, and that's when things all changed.
How did you take that as a kid?
Well, I wasn't a kid. I was of age when that happened.
How old were you?
Oh, I think I was like 19 or 20.
So, Aaron, whenever you got out of your parents' house, you finally grew up and became of age. Did you go to college?
Yes, sir.
What'd you go to college for?
I got an AA degree in business administration.
Did you graduate?
Yes, sir, from Brevard Community College. Then I have almost over a year. I was well into my senior year at the University of Central Florida. Then when my dad got cancer, I moved back home, helped my mother out with the bills, because my dad left.
Was your mom bitter about him leaving?
Oh, yes, I'd say she was.
Did he stay in contact with you after he left?
Yes, sir.
Did you get into any kind of substance abuse or anything through college or as a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, started out, well, we used to smoke a lot of marijuana. We'd go junior high and high school, and there were keg parties every weekend, so we mostly drinking beer and smoking marijuana.
Just the typical stuff, and you didn't get into anything hard?
Well, I did later on. After college, I did.
Okay, after college. You realize that you're a minority in prison with a college education, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge statistic that, you know, most people that are incarcerated aren't educated.
Right.
Talking down the line from a Florida jail phone, Aaron Stimus doesn't fit the typical profile of someone incarcerated for murder. Broadly speaking, those convicted of serious crimes in the U.S. often have low levels of education, dysfunctional childhoods, and early onset substance abuse. Aaron fits none of these criteria. He paints a rosy picture of his childhood, one marked by comfort and financial security and void of substance abuse. Despite relocating from New York to Florida, Aaron thrived at school, earning good grades and excelling in the sport of wrestling. By graduation, he had easily secured a place in college and looked poised to build the same kind of stable and successful life his parents had provided for him. Aaron might have grown up in relative privilege, but appearances can be deceiving. Beneath the ostensibly happy lives around us lurk dark secrets and family politics. What challenges did Aaron face, I wondered, in the years that followed?
So you had a pretty seemingly normal life with the parents that had pretty good income. Of course, you know, always behind the scene, you know, marriage is a lot more difficult than what we see it. And, you know, the typical, you went through college. What was your pursuit after college?
Oh, I got into construction and I became a carpenter by trade.
Pretty good.
I was self-employed.
Yeah, pretty good at it.
Yeah, a lot of my colleagues called me a master carpenter. I did a lot of work up at Patrick Air Force Base and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. So I did a lot of government work for a lot of government contractors.
Yeah. How was your love life?
Well, I was married 18 years and lived with her 2 years before we got married.
Who is she?
That was my wife, Julianne. That's who my victim was.
Yeah. So how did you meet Julianne?
Through her boyfriend.
Through her boyfriend?
Yeah.
Now that's kind of unique. Tell me about that.
Well, he took off with her car and she came over and one thing led to another.
Interesting. Did you basically win her over?
Yeah, more or less. Well, he'd take off in her car and leave her stranded, so.
Okay, so you were kind of the savior that night?
Well, we just, we had a mutual friend that used to sell cocaine, and so I kind of, me and her ended up doing some, and so one thing led to another.
Whenever you met Julianne, were you into drugs then?
Yeah.
Was she?
Yes.
So did y'all do drugs together?
Yes.
And you said y'all were together for a couple years and then y'all got married?
Yes.
And did y'all have kids together?
Somewhere in there. Yes, sir.
How many kids did y'all have?
2, son and a daughter.
Do you still have a relationship with them?
I have one with I just talked to my daughter a little while ago when she came to visit my sisters. So.
What about your son?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in 20 years.
How come?
But well, he's got a problem with opiates too, and I believe he's been diagnosed as a schizophrenic, so he doesn't have a place that I can contact him. He doesn't have a stable living environment.
That's unfortunate. What is your daughter? How does she feel about what you did to her mother?
Well, she hadn't really discussed it a whole lot.
Yeah. How was the relationship prior to getting married? Did it seem like it was turbulent or was everything great?
Everything was pretty good.
Whenever you got married, when did things go sour?
Oh, after I got hurt in a construction accident, was put on prescription Oxycontin and Lortab, Lorset.
So you got hooked on pain pills when you got hurt?
Well, I had a disability insurance, but money got tight.
Well, hold on a second. I'm asking if you got hooked on pain pills whenever this happened.
Yes, sir.
Right. And do you feel like that being hooked on the pain pills like changed the dynamic of you and the relationship?
Absolutely.
How bad did it get with the opiates?
Those were bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot where a lot of that starts is somebody, having surgery or major accident, and in order to, help them out, they're fed a lot of pain pills, but in the end, those pain pills become a kind of a little mark in their life to where it's just a good feeling. They want to continue that feeling. What year did this happen?
2001.
Yeah, and that's whenever opioids stuff was really bad around Florida. Like, it was just being flooded in that area. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
The whole state, really.
Yeah, they were going through a bunch of law changes, and like people were just traveling from across different states to go in. And there was, I remember now, and I know that also that usually opiates can really change a person to where they can start having some pretty serious side effects of getting angry and things like that. Did you have these episodes where you'd get really angry?
Yeah, definitely have mood swings from it.
I bet that gets you really amped up where you get aggravated real easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have outbursts with anger whenever you would take them?
Not always. It just happened occasionally that your moods would swing.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty normal with opiate use. Did she start to get to where she was coming to the end of her rope with you, threatening divorce, or what?
Yeah, we were going through a divorce.
So she actually filed for divorce on you?
Yes, sir.
How long were you married up until she said, "Hey, I want a divorce"? How long were y'all married?
Let's say 18 years.
18 years in, the Stimus marriage was on the rocks. By 2002, the affair had deteriorated to the point that Julianne Stimus demanded a divorce from her estranged husband. Cut forward to later that year when, in the wake of the unfortunate events that would follow, Juliana's siblings shared memories of their beloved sister. It's from these accounts that we can piece together a picture of Aaron's wife, fondly known as Julie. Julianne was the eldest child and well known for her fierce courage and determined will. Those who knew her described her as vivacious and tough, never one to back down, and eager to embrace all life had to offer. According to her sister, Julie was a colorful storyteller who could tell tales that were, quote-unquote, so rich and vibrant in detail that if you were to repeat it, you'd have to ask yourself, was I there? When Aaron and Julie had fallen in love in their early 20s, they had moved to the Satellite Beach area and started a family. Cue Aaron's construction accident, however, and the marriage irrevocably broke down. The accident not only put financial strain on the family of four, but also led to Aaron's addiction to the painkillers he was prescribed. At first, Aaron used the pills for legitimate pain management, but gradually became addicted to their mood-altering side effects. His mood became erratic, punctuated by sharp mood swings, which drove a wedge between him and his wife. The new Aaron was no longer the man Julie had met at 27 years old, and she wanted out of the marriage. The divorce proceedings were bitter. Assets had to be divided, custody matters agreed upon, and the couple found themselves locked in a months-long court battle to settle the terms of their separation. But with both parties striving to cut the better deal from the divorce and neither willing to back down, the situation was about to turn ugly. We'll hear how after the break.
Tell me about the week or two leading up to your crime. Was it really turbulent? Did you have a protection order put against you?
Yeah, we both had restraining orders against each other.
Were you on pain pills at the time?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that was making matters worse for you?
Absolutely.
So, would you say that she was scared of you?
Nah, I wouldn't say that.
It's somebody that puts a protection on somebody, usually that means they're scared of them, right? You don't think she was scared of you?
Well, I filed for this restraining order against her, and then to get back at me, she filed one on me too. So the judge had granted two of them. We had one against each other.
Yeah.
Hers was more of a retaliation type.
Right. So are you scared of her?
I wasn't physically afraid of her, but she was like, when I was in my house, I had two houses across the street from each other, and I'd be asleep in the house, and she'd come into the house and start doing crazy stuff, smashing curtains.
Where did you live at the time, and where did she live?
I lived across the street from my wife. I owned two houses. I had a street named after me. It was Aaron's Way.
Was it actually named after you?
Yeah, because there were like 4 Arlington streets in a close proximity. When my wife asked if we could get the street name changed, they said please, so it was real easy because I own both houses on the street. And she got it changed for my birthday.
Nice.
Like 2-3 years before that incident.
That was nice of her. So y'all are actually going through this big dispute. You have protection orders against each other, and you actually live directly across the street from one another?
Yep. But after that happened, they changed the state law. They made it mandatory. In Florida, that you have to live, I forget what is it, 200-300 feet or more apart, because we're only like 85 feet door to door.
Well, and the protection order probably says something like stay 1,000 foot away from each other. But then if you have to live there, then it probably gives you that leeway to do that. But you're saying that it's been changed. Was it changed because of your murder?
Yes, sir. Back then, they made it mandatory that the judge has no discretion. It has to be like the 1,000 feet or whatever the state statute is.
So you basically set a precedence for the Florida courts, sounds like.
Yeah, and I forget exactly what it was, but the judge has no discretion now. They used to have discretion in what determining the distance, but now they have no discretion in some case law.
It was no secret that Aaron and Julie Stimus were going through an acrimonious divorce. They were embroiled in a spiteful legal battle that had dragged on for months. Both had obtained protection orders against the other. In practice, Aaron admits, these were ineffectual since the couple lived across the street from each other on a road aptly named Aaron's Way. By July, Aaron was fed up with this long, drawn-out legal dispute with his wife. On July 16, 2002, when a civil process official delivered new court papers from Julie to Aaron's house, Aaron was visibly upset. Talking to police after the crime, the server recalled Aaron saying that, quote-unquote, he had had enough and was going to end it all. Over the course of that day, Aaron took 8 times his prescription of OxyContin and drank 6 to 12 cans of beer, which left him heavily intoxicated as he stewed in his anger. The court injunction that was part of the protection order against Aaron made it illegal for him to possess a gun, but Aaron had disregarded this and kept a 9mm handgun at his house. That evening, he took the gun, walked over to Julianne's home, and shot her on the street while their year-old daughter watched. Witnesses then saw Aaron shoot himself in the head too, completing what appeared to be a planned murder-suicide. At least, this is the official version of what took place that day, the one recorded in the court documents. But as I talked to Aaron, he takes issue with the facts I've just stated, disputing the official narrative and casting doubt into what is generally regarded as fact. Over 20 years later, it's time for Aaron to tell his side of the story. We'll hear that on the next installment of this story on Voices of a Killer. If you want to find out what happens next, right now, you can sign up at patreon.com/voicesofakiller. There you can find bonus content, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community. So go to patreon.com/voicesofakiller to sign up now. Your support is what keeps us passionate about bringing these stories to you. That's a wrap on this episode of Voices of a Killer. A big shout out to Sonic Futures who handled the production. audio editing, music licensing, and promotion of this podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, make sure to visit our website at voicesofakiller.com. There you can find previous episodes, transcripts, and additional information about the podcast. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your feedback helps us improve and reach new listeners. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to share more stories with you in the future. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Toby, and we'll see you next time on Voices of a Killer.